But it was the only bid that was close to my budget. I felt like we had to use it. If I talked to him about it, it just would have made his price go up. We couldn't have used it. We had to use his price the way it was. The drawings were a mess. They're always a mess. There wasn't time to put together a first-class set of documents. We had to go with what we had. But so what? The contractor always does whatever he wants to anyway. I know how to build. I don't need to be told what to do by an architect wearing a bow tie and dress shoes. I mean, really, we're being told what to do from somebody that maybe hasn't even built a doghouse? Communication? Yes, communication's very important. But there's no talking to this contractor. It's like talking to a mud fence. Communication? Of course communication is important. There's no talking to this dweeb. If he had ever been on a sports team or a club or something in high school, he would have learned to communicate. A book club would have helped. We didn't know how the elevator was going to work, so we just drew up something for intent that the contractor could bid from. And we put some notes in there to cover it. I know they're in there. I recall doing that. We mentioned the elevator problems to the architect. He told us to look at a note that he had buried in there. I doubt we even saw it when we bid the job. Either way, it's not in our bid. No, of course I didn't ask. He would have raised his price. The elevator didn't look like it was going to work. But we didn't feel like we could ask any questions about it until we got the job. RFI 856? I remember that one. It was about the elevator. As I recall, the contractor sent it about halfway through the project. I told him to look at the contract documents. I put it in RFI 856 to address the elevator. It's not my job to design that thing. The contractor ended up picking out a cheap elevator, and that was not my intent. I found one that would fit. An elevator's an elevator, right? He screwed up the whole thing. The elevator, it was very important to me. He should have known that not just any elevator would do. If the architect couldn't figure out the problem for my RFI, he wasn't doing his job. He just didn't look at the drawings. Who does he think he is? Ask? That's not my job. The architect is supposed to design the project. Ask him? That's not my job. The note was in the plan somewhere. I can't read his mind. How do I know which elevator he wants? Who does he think he is? Sure, the project took too long, but that's hardly my fault. I have a client to protect. Sure, the project ended up costing too much. That's hardly my fault. I have to protect the owner. The one about the contractor? A man in a hot air balloon realizes he's lost. And he spots a man down below and he shouts, "Excuse me, can you help me? I promised my friend I'd meet him a half hour ago, but I don't know where I am." And the man on the ground, he says, "You must be a contractor." And the man in the balloon, he says, "Well, yes, I am. But how did you know?" "Well," says the man, "you don't know where you are. You don't know where you're going. You've made promises you can't keep, and now you expect me to solve your problems." Did you hear the one about the architect? There's a guy in a hot air balloon, and he realizes he's lost. And he spots this guy down on the ground, and he shouts, "Excuse me, can you help me? I promised my friend I'd be with him about a half hour ago, but I don't know where I am." And the guy on the ground, he says, "Yeah, you're in a hot air balloon, hovering about 30 feet above the field, between 40 and 41 degrees north latitude, and 120 and 124 degrees west longitude. You must be an architect," said the guy on the balloon. The guy on the ground says, "Yeah, I am. But how'd you know that?" "Well," said the guy in the balloon, "everything you've told me is technically correct, but it's absolutely of no use to me, and I still don't know where I am." Communication? Of course communication's important.